About 5 seconds.
All right. Do I have time to get my makeup done, or got a little blemish over here?
Yeah, plenty of
Stare at it. You're making it.
We're live. We're live.
Thank you, Larry. Good evening, everyone. Today is February 2nd. It is February 2nd, 2021. Calling the 7:03, calling the meeting for the Public Works Committee to order. I'll start off by doing a roll. I'm just going to announce everyone, if that's okay with them, instead of having you say yes. George Serenides, myself, Mr. Keegan, Mr. Livingston, Ms. Smith, Ms. Young are all in attendance. We have a quorum. So we'll be starting off with public input. Larry, do we have anybody that's called in or wants to speak tonight?
No, we don't.
Okay. Monique, has anybody called in? Or sorry, has anybody wrote in anything that should be read into the minutes?
No, Chairman, they have not.
Okay. Have any of the council members received anything that they want to add? Neither have I, other than all thank yous to the Public Works for their good work cleaning the snow. So since we don't have any meetings, anybody for public input? Oh, so, I'm sorry, and George Theodorides is here. I apologize for that. Monique, you got him. Item number 1, approve the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. Would anyone like to move that? Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Any corrections, adjustments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
I abstain, George.
Aye.
Okay, let the record show Mr. Theodorides abstained, and Ms. Young, you were a yes?
Yes.
Okay, item number 2. Approve the Title VI complaint procedure as the official policy for the city of Norwalk. Anthony, is that supposed to be complaint procedure or complaint policy?
I believe procedure is okay,
Okay,
but it's a procedure that'll be incorporated as a policy.
okay, perfect. Would anybody like to move the item? Thank you, Ms. Smith. And Anthony, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So by way of background, a Title VI complaint basically is a complaint that a person who believes that they are discriminated against on the basis of race, color, or national origin, right? They can facilitate a complaint if they feel that, again, they're discriminated against, specifically in programs and activities that include federal funding, or if they're a federal aid recipient. So what the Title VI allows, complaint procedure, it allows an individual to basically submit a complaint formally to the city of Norwalk for any projects that we administer or procure where they feel like they were treated unfairly for the reasons I cited above. So just a little bit more background. In 2019, CONDOT, Connecticut Department of Transportation, they initiated a Title VI DBE review. This was prompted because the feds, the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, basically started doing an audit of all these state agencies that they delegate the federal authority to oversee federally funded projects that are state administered, right? So it would be like getting money from the federal government and then Connecticut DOT kind of administering that project, whether it's from a financial aspect or construction aspect. They started auditing state agencies, particularly CONDOT, and CONDOT said, okay, well, wait, now we have to make sure we're in compliance with Title VI procedures. So we need to now audit all the municipalities and stakeholders that would have some kind of Title VI DBE, which is DBE, Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, is diverse business enterprise, or is it, right? So that's what the Title VI and DBE review was initiated in 2019 because the federal government, FHWA, pushed CONDOT to look in their books. So CONDOT's now auditing the municipalities. So by way of satisfying their audit, there's a lot of different things we have to do. One component is to adopt a procedure that, again, allows an avenue for those who feel they're discriminated against for projects that involve federal aided or federal funded. That, and again, like a DBE would be a good example, right? a disadvantaged business enterprise if they feel that they weren't given a fair shake or they were intentionally excluded from the bid process. They can file.
It's a little beyond that also, Anthony.
Okay.
One thing is that there is, I just want to add a little bit to what you're saying. What happened is that every federal highway project, so in other words, any money that we get that is from FHWA, it is required by federal law that we have to engage any DBE companies, so the minority. And there is a list that would apply to it. So usually we already do, particularly DPW, under all our projects that is federal funded, and some of them state funded, because if the state got that federal fund, also we need to follow that. But what they are doing, as Anthony just explained, now they are taking a close look on the municipalities to make sure that they are also following those rules. And sometimes in some departments, it's not very clear that some of that funding could have come or a grant from the federal agency. So that's why we're trying to implement this policy citywide, and that's why we're using DPW to adopt it and then we'll go in front of the Common Council. So this way, what will happen is that all the time that we have any kind of bid that would involve any federal money from the federal highway, it will have to follow some procedures. So that's what kind of the bottom line. One thing that is good is, as I said, DPW we have been going through this for a long time, and we're helping legal and purchasing to put together everything that will be necessary to follow those rules. And usually when we advertise already a package, a bid, we have to already let them know that X% will have to be DBE. In other words, whoever's going to be working on that project, X amount of that work has to be given to a DBE enterprise. And then also it's our job throughout the project to make sure that that company that was listed before when we accept the bid is performing and doing that kind of work.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Sure.
Ms. Young.
So did you had to do some digging to see where the city is with that? And so where are we? What do the numbers look like as far as how we've been doing with DBE enterprises?
Darlene, we as the city, if we just have like a city project, we do not require DBE because that is not required under our statute. So that wouldn't apply to us. This is again a federal law, and usually when we receive any federal grant, is what will follow. Rest assured that all projects coming through DPW would totally are in compliance. If we are not, we do not get reimbursed by the state. So we're extremely careful on make sure that we follow those rules, and also they are watching us all the time. I think that this is more just to make sure that other departments are also aware that this law exists and that must be followed. So for instance, if you're gonna buy some kind of supply, for, I don't know, another department, and then for whatever reason came through, it was funded by the FHWA, you have to make sure that it would be also follow the DBE rules. So kind of pretty much that's what it is, but usually DPW is the one that will have most of it. Now probably TMP as well, because they're gonna follow some grants, but we are the majority of it on following, receiving those grants, and we do follow those rules. So this is just a formality to make sure that we're gonna adopt that into our everyday policy throughout the city.
And each project typically has, like Vanessa said, a federally funded project. They'll have an MBE, minority business enterprise, a WBE, women's business enterprise, or a DBE, a disadvantaged business enterprise. They'll usually have a goal for that project. So they might say, 5% WBE, 5% DBE. So you have to make every attempt to meet that goal. And if you cannot, you have to document, well, if the contractor can't meet that goal, they have to document what's called good faith efforts. So they have to show that they tried to meet the 5% if they fall short of that number. So that percentage, Darlene, is assigned on a project by project basis, and it varies between projects and grants.
Is this language, the federally mandated language? Or somebody in legal look at this, or how'd you come up with it?
Well, no, it's all legal. It's legal that asks us just to put for approval. And I think that you're gonna see in your background, there was a memo of that language that Darren put together.
Yes, we worked with Darren Callahan on this task, because there may be more work to follow for the Title VI requirements.
I'm a little confused. So are you saying that the city has not, take the city out of it? So this is just for who then?
This is for ConnDOT. So the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, audited Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I heard all that stuff. Yeah,
Right.
I get,
So
it
it's just-
just is for everybody.
It will apply to everybody, Darlene. So
Everybody
let's
in the city. Okay,
Yeah, so let's say if you receive any grants on your department.
okay,
And you have now to be, pay attention that if it is, that fund somehow comes from the FHWA, you have to make sure that you follow the Title VI. That's what it
Title
is.
VI. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor? Darlene,
Yeah,
George?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Item 3, 4, and 5 are similar projects. They just pertain to different locations. They're similar contracts. They pertain to different locations. Would it be okay if I read them all together, or do you guys want to go through them individually?
Fine by me.
We could speak on all 3 of them, but they're similar in nature. They're just different projects. So, item 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and AI Engineers, Inc. for project DPW 2021-1 on-call engineering services. The agreement is for a period of 1 year, billable on an hourly basis for a sum not to exceed $50,000, with an option to extend for 2 additional terms of 1 year each. Accounts noted. Item number 4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and Weston and Sampson Engineers, Inc. for project DPW 2021-1 on-call engineering services. The agreement is for a period of 1 year, billable on the hourly basis for a sum not to exceed $50,000, with an option to extend for 2 additional terms of 1 year each. Accounts noted. Item number 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and Time Bond, Inc. for project DPW 2021-1 on-call engineering services. The agreement is for a period of 1 year, billable on an hourly basis for a sum not to exceed $50,000, with an option to extend for 2 additional terms of 1 year each. Accounts noted. Who would like to move the item? Thank you, Mr. Livingston. All right. Who would like to talk on it a little bit?
I'll say a little bit, and then obviously Vanessa and Paul, if you'd like to fill in the gaps. So Mr. Chairman, these 3 contracts are for on-call engineering services, which is basically to assist DPW engineering with construction oversight of select and specialized capital projects, and also to assist with a land use or site plan review, right? So when I say land use review, that's when we get a set of plans from a developer. Typically, we'll review them in-house, but this or these consultants, which may be one or a combination of all 3 of them, would assist with the review of the plans, provide feedback. We would do a final review, and then we'd send a memo to whatever department in the city is requesting the review. So that basically this is the first time we've done this type of contract for on-call engineering services. But again, because engineering is short-staffed and due to the volume of work, we did work with purchasing and the law department, and we arrived at the happy medium. We all agreed on the number of consultants that should be ultimately selected, which you'll see is 3. And that is to allow versatility because each consultant tends to have a stronger background and discipline than the other. And it's also to keep each consultant honest. If we have an assignment, we may solicit pricing from all three of them, and they know three consultants were selected. So it becomes a cost advantage to us that the other two consultants will know that, okay, wait, we maybe should keep our numbers sharp. I mean, they're bound by their hourly rates, but they may there's more incentive to keep the price non-escalated when they know that there's three of them. And again, you don't want to rely too heavily on one consultant because they may be busy. Your assignments could fall maybe to the middle of the pile. So these three consultants, I have to say, were vetted very thoroughly from the selection panel, which Vanessa could speak a little bit more to, and Paul, who was on the actual selection panel. We had over 9 proposals submitted. The shortlisted number of consultants was 6, and then we interviewed, and then we selected 3. So it was a pretty rigorous process. Staff did a very good job. I was not really a member of the panel. I was more of an ex officio, just kind of in there in the background, providing input when needed. But they did a very diligent review, and very impressed with the process. Vanessa?
I'm familiar with Ty and Bond. We see them all the time. We've always been very happy with them. How are the other 2 engineering firms that I'm not too familiar with them? I know I've seen AI engineering before, but Weston and Sampson I don't recall at all.
Vanessa, Paul, I could speak to it, but you were in the
Sure.
selection panel.
So what we try to accomplish here is what Anthony just mentioned. We are just trying to find a few companies that could help us to do some of the work when we are kind of short staff. So also just want to emphasize that this is not for like big tasks. $50,000, to be honest, is not a big number to give to a design consultant. So it will be just more small tasks that we're planning to issue to them throughout the course of the year. And with that in mind, we try to select 3 companies that had a very broad base that could really help us on those tasks. So as Anthony mentioned, we had, I believe, actually 13 companies that apply. We shortlisted to 6, we selected 3. So AI was one of the top ones because they have a lot of a wide subjects that they can cover for us, particularly like structural and bridge. That is a good forte for them besides all the plan reviews. Ty and Bond, it's very familiar with our city standards. They actually helped doing them back in the 80s. And they are very familiar with our paving and all that. And Weston and Sampson, one of the reasons that we ended up all agreeing to go with him is that they have a very, very strong experience with grants. And that for us now it's kind of crucial because we know that sometimes we know that there are some grants available out there, but it takes time for you to file the application. And they seem very strong on that, and particularly also with permits. As you remember, when we did the water course maintenance now, for all, we need to get permits, and then took forever until we were able to engage someone, and then took another almost a year until we were able to go there and do all the work on the wetlands. So that's why we try to select the 3 of them, and we believe that we're gonna have a very good pool of companies that will be able to serve us in different areas. Paul, did I miss anything?
I think that pretty much summed it up, but as Vanessa said, Weston and Sampson was very strong with the permitting, and overall the entire process was very competitive. Even taking the 6 down to 3, it was tough just to get it to 3 because of the entire packages that the people put together and their experience. It was very, very competitive. And it was interesting too, because one of the things that we did is we asked the companies, don't just bring your CEO or one of your principals with you. We'd like to see the people that are actually going to be doing the work in the different areas. And Weston and Sampson's permitting person, the engineer that would be doing that, was rattling off some of the standards and different things right off the bat and was very, very good with it. So it gave us a broad range. We got to see the people that are actually going to be doing the work, which is the key. You don't necessarily want to see the CEO or the principal of the company because they always put on a good front. You want to see the guys that are going to be doing the work or the ladies that are going to be doing the work. And they did that and it worked out very well. And we were able to get it down to 3, but it was very competitive.
Yeah, and AI engineer, to be honest, they've been knocking on our door for some time. We were always very impressed about what they can offer. Unfortunately, their price wasn't very competitive in the past. I think that they adjust their rates. And also this time they really had a lot of experience on this on-call engineering service for a lot of different municipalities. So also that's why we went with them.
Tom?
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Livingston?
if I heard you correctly, you said you're doing this because being short-staffed. Can you just let us know about the staffing, open positions, what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, so now we're down to, we have 6 positions that are vacant. We have a senior engineer, then we have 5 junior engineers that was originally. What the plan that we have is that the senior engineer is already advertised. We advertised 2 of the 5 opening junior engineers so far. We're gonna have a transfer, and the other 3 junior engineer positions, we are changing a little bit the job description, because we believe that instead of having 5 junior engineers, we'll have to do a couple of changes to adapt to our needs. So one of them, it's a construction inspection that we're gonna get it a transfer from TMP. So we're gonna be able to fill that one very easy. Actually, the person is already working in one of our projects, but officially we're gonna make the transfer in mid-February. That will be Frank Mauro. And then the other junior engineer position, we're switching to a drafter. We need a lot of, we have one person that do most of the draft for us in-house, and we feel that we can keep him busy 37.5 hours a week. And we know that we were afraid that he would take the package. We were lucky enough that he didn't take the package, but we know that in a few years he may be gone. So what we're trying to do is to hire a drafter now that will be under his wing, so he can help him we can now have 2 people doing all the design in-house when needed. And also when this person leaves, he'll be experienced enough that he'll be able to take over more responsibilities, and with that have a second one in. And then so the 2 junior engineers is already advertised. The drafter, we're just finalizing all the job description and going through the union for approval, and that I'm hoping that in no more than 2 weeks should be advertised. And then we still have 1 junior engineer position that is still open, that we were even talking today, what we're gonna do with that position, if we're gonna keep as a junior engineer, or if we're gonna switch, because we believe that we have another need more than a junior engineer. So we're still debating internally, and we'll decide hopefully by next week, and we should advertise that soon.
Do you have any sense of the market? I know in the past it's been difficult for you guys to find people.
Tom, I'll be able to answer that question better next month.
Yeah.
I've been advertising everywhere. We've been kind of calling a lot of the interns that work for us, because we have those 2 junior engineer positions open. We are also advertising the 2 junior engineers through UConn to see if we can get someone that will be about now to graduate in May. So we're hoping that we will be able to get those 2. The senior engineer has been a problem. It's the second time that we are going out for that. We had 1 person, and unfortunately it didn't work out at the last minute. So now we're going for the second round on advertising that one. And that one is very key, because that person takes a lot of the load of the senior engineers, because now it's Paul and Drew pretty much doing everything in that office now. So that's why we needed this RFQ, because there are a lot of things. The small things usually take as much time as the big things. So we're trying to be able to focus on the core and get some of those small things for the companies to help us with.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, to answer your question, civil engineering right now is a very competitive field in a variety of places in other municipalities. I've got a friend that works for the city of Danbury, and he's having a hard time finding people too. So it's a very competitive field right now.
I have a question, but I'll go after Ms. Smith.
Thanks. Yeah, two questions. I mean, it just, I know a while back, salary seemed to be one of the biggest issues in terms of attracting engineers. Does that continue to be the major issue in terms of attracting? So that's my first question.
I think, Barbara, in general, the market now is still very good for construction. Particularly during COVID, construction was essential. You guys know how much work we did this year. And also with all these families trying to move out of the big cities and move into the suburb, there is a lot of the small developers that are also hiring, because you can see a lot of new houses are coming up or being renovated, and also they are hiring engineers. So when the market is hot, of course, we don't have, the fact is not just the salary, is that we usually run the salary a little below the private market, but before we used to have a lot of benefits that would close that gap. So you had a pension, you had a free medical, but now we do not offer that anymore. The medical is paid and we do not have a pension anymore. So.
Okay. And then my second question, in an ideal world, if all these positions were filled, would we not need to be going to these consultants, or do you still foresee that you might need consultants on occasion?
I think that we're still gonna need them, because the amount of work that we are getting, it's increasing in a good way. We give support to other departments. We give support to GMP. GMP barely have no much staff. They have two big projects. Remember, they have the Norwalk River Valley Trail that will start construction, that we need to oversee that for them. Also, we do a lot of work for Recs and Parks, and we're doing now the West Rock soccer field, and we're getting things ready to do the other softball and baseball field. So I can see that it will be coming. But again, if we have anything that is very big, we're gonna put a separate RFP out. So then we're gonna have a design company. This is just to help us with our daily small tasks, and can be something like simple. For instance, last year we had a retaining wall at Flax Hill that need attention, So Paul did a very good job, but for him to be able to get that project going, he had to stop what he was doing. That was a major project. And then he had to divert his attention to that. So the idea is that, okay, if we have an issue like that, we can make a call, we can have an engineer on site, he can evaluate, he can go back to the office. We don't need to worry too much about it for 2-3 days, and then we're gonna have the drawings ready and we can execute.
And some of the items that these firms will do too are very specialty structural engineering items that we would need somebody to do anyhow.
That makes sense. Okay. Thank you both.
Okay, well, thank you, Barb. You asked my questions. One was going to be about competitive salary, and the other one was going to be about a couple of projects, for example. So, Vanessa, Paul, you seem to answer both of those. Thank you. Is there any other questions? All right, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Hopefully down the road, we'll be able to fill some of these positions and take some of the private sector consulting away. Okay, item number 6. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to acquire an easement at 473 Connecticut Avenue for purposes of constructing, operating, maintaining, repairing, and replacing a pump station. Who would like to move the item? Thank you, George Theodorides, for moving the item. And Anthony, before I pass this on to you, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the property you spoke on in the past. It's an Eversource property that we're looking to construct a whole new pump station.
Yes.
And this is going to be for a permanent easement, right?
Yes, correct, Mr. Chairman. This is not a temporary easement or construction access easement. This is a permanent easement to construct, operate, maintain, repair, replace components of the new pump station as needed. And just to give you some background on the committee, this pump station was constructed in the 1970s. It's approximately 30 feet deep. Since 2003, there's been ongoing maintenance issues at the WPCA, and we have Ralph Culp here tonight. Spent the last 2 days with him too, so he could answer some of the maybe more detailed questions if they come up. But there's been a lot of issues since 2003. WPCA has done a good job and providing the maintenance with the contract operator with formerly OMI, now Suez. This pump station was also identified as one of the 15 pump stations in the city's sanitary sewer pump station master plan to be replaced in the very near future. So we stated that plan. We've been sticking with it, which is why you've heard some other pump station projects around Old Trolley Way, 5 Mile, Woodward Avenue. There's a couple other pump station projects that we have in the pipeline, but this is here tonight because the action is to approve a permanent easement on Eversource property to construct a new pump station on the other side of the parcel away from the existing pump station. So we've been negotiating with Eversource for approximately 1 year. They were at times very difficult and challenging to get answers from. And at the beginning, they had very, very stringent requirements of how they'd like to see the existing pump station demolished. So they wanted us to go 30 feet down and remove everything or fill it with concrete, which would have been a very expensive endeavor. Typically, industry standard is you go 10 feet into the ground and you leave everything else below it. You fill it with concrete or with sand or whatever approved material. This pump station is also located in the FEMA 100-year floodway. So you might hear the word floodplain, you might hear the word floodway, and there's a difference. So the floodway is basically the middle of the waterway where the velocity and the flow of the water is the fastest. It's the most damaging. And then as the water level rises and it goes to the edges, the water is typically slower, and they call it the flood fringe. But when you hear the 100-year floodplain, that's the fringe, which is the outer part, and then there's the floodway, which is the inner part. You cannot get anything approved or constructed within today's standards within the FEMA floodway. It is an absolute no-no. It can cause a lot of problems, and there's no analysis in the world that you can show to say, hey, whatever we put there won't impact the water level, because it will. So this project would get the existing pump station out of the 100-year floodway and completely out of the floodplain in its entirety. So you're not going to be in the floodway, which is the middle, and the flood fringe, which is the edge. You're going to be completely outside the 100-year floodplain. So the Connecticut DEEP office was very much in support of that, and they pushed Eversource and said, "Look, you have to work with the city. This is no good. We need this outside of the 100-year floodplain because of water quality issues, right? If there's a flood and this pump station backs up, you could have sanitary sewer discharge overland, which is not good. You could have it within the brook itself, and it also comes down to a floodplain management issue. If you leave the structure there, makes the water slightly higher. You take it out, it'll drop the water level X inches. We haven't done an analysis on that, so I can't really give you a number on that. But their take on it is anything outside the floodway is a bonus. So Eversource said, "Okay, DEEP, we hear you. We'll work with the city. We'll loosen up on the requirements." So instead of us having to dig down 30 feet, they said, "Okay, we're okay with the 10." So we have an easement right now around the existing pump station because in the past, back in the 70s, to build it and maintain it, we needed such easement. We're taking the same easement, same boundary, and applying it now to the new pump station, which in your packet, you'll see a new map with a new easement. They call it meets and bounds, which is just another fancy word for the boundary of the easement. And it gives you degrees and lengths of each line. So you'll see the meets and bounds of the new easement that we're proposing so that we can construct the new pump station and then maintain it in the future. Again, this is about a $5 million project, $3 million of which will go towards the pump station, but another $2 million of that cost will be allocated towards improving about 2,500 linear feet of the force main, which is the pipe that leaves the pump station under pressure so it can get into the sanitary sewer system. And again, you have the pump usually because your pump station is lower, and where it needs to get the sanitary sewer, it's at a higher elevation. So you need the pump to pump it up. So that's why they call it a force main. So we're going to include 2,500 linear feet replacement of a force main on Connecticut Avenue. So the whole project's $5 million. And it's not just the pump station, it's the pipes that actually leave the pump station too.
What proportion's paid by WPCA, if any?
The entire project.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yes.
And just, can you tell me what this is near on Connecticut Avenue? I was trying to figure this out.
It's adjacent to the Keeler Brook, right next to Chick-fil-A.
That's what I thought, okay.
Good description, Ralph.
Yeah.
Hey, Ralph, what's the average lifespan of a pump station? Once we complete this, how long are we looking at it for?
Pumps and piping can last about 30 years. The building itself is usually about 50 years. Obviously, over time, you rehabilitate components that fail. You can extend the useful life of the station and equipment.
And with the location that we're looking at right now, we're not going to run into more problems with the high power voltage lines above and with Eversource, right?
Where the new easement is, there are restrictions because of the high power tension wires. So we're only going to be allowed to have a 1-story building within a 2-story zone. So that we're going actually to ZBA for a variance next month, later this month.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, just to be clear, so you're not looking for approval of the funding, you're just looking for approval of the easement, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
George?
Yes.
Okay, great, unanimous.
Thank you.
Item number 7, approve the East Norwalk Village District Standards as part of the City of Norwalk Department of Public Works Standard Detailed Drawings. Who'd like to move that item? Thank you, Ms. Smith. And who would like to speak on it? I see we have Mr. Kleppen with us tonight too. And I'm a little familiar with this. I know it's just setting down guidelines on what the look of the appearance of the sidewalks and different light fixtures, stuff like that for the area. I know we've spoken about it during planning committee zoning meetings. So it's good to see this going forward, but who would like to add more information and really inform everyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'll add a little bit, and then Vanessa, I know, has a bit more background, and so does Steve, but the existing Appendix E, which are the design guidelines for the East Norwalk Neighborhood TOD Plan, Transit-Oriented Development, from June 2020. And again, I know Vanessa and Steve could speak to more about what the current status is of that plan, but in that TOD plan, there's language that references the protection and enhancement of historic design character, maintaining the landscape, historic structures, density development. So that's the whole purpose of a TOD plan, right? It's to focus on certain elements within a certain area. And again, they're all zoning related, hence the reason why that Steve is doing his due diligence and a big part of that plan. Engineering and DPW provides support to that plan in one sense, but this TOD plan is a vision for the future of East Norwalk, right? And it's an opportunity to standardize certain elements like a streetscape, which includes curbs, pavements, pavers, the little decorative strip on the side between the curb and the sidewalk, ornamental lights, etc. So it's to maintain and preserve a certain aesthetic quality and a certain historical character of that area. So in short, we have been tasked to develop and include a set of standard construction details, which, we have those now for lights, pavement, curb, sidewalk, but these standard construction details would be incorporated into the Department of Public Works standard detail drawing so that any future development in that area, assuming the TOD is approved and everything moves forward and we fast forward 5 years and there's a development that wants to go there, they would follow this standardization. So they would have that look and that aesthetic appeal and that character that was agreed upon and approved by the various entities involved, stakeholders, et cetera. So basically guide them in how things should look in the right of way, particularly. And again, that's more like the curb, sidewalk, those type of streetscape elements. So this is an opportunity where we're going to invoke a standardization into the Public Works existing standards for the particular East Norwalk area. I mean, Vanessa, I know you could speak a little bit more into, and Steve has way more background than I do.
So that's correct. So what happened is that in a few areas here in town, we have some specific city standards that apply to that. So a very easy example is South Norwalk, right? We know that on the sidewalks, we always have those red brick pavers instead of the grass strip. So if someone goes and gonna build anything or they're gonna do any repair, they have to follow the standards for that area. So what we are trying to do here is just that because this is a new area and we have just finalized the East Avenue TOD, there were some design guidelines that will be adapted and will be created a village area within East Avenue. And there are some streetscape amenities that they want to use just particularly to this area. So what we are doing is that now we are incorporating in our design and make sure that when that moves forward, we already have in our plans and they will have to follow that. And then we know that, okay, they want to do also some kind of brick pavers there. It will be a different color, but they have to also be installed in a certain way. So that's kind of what that is. So we're just trying to close the loop and whatever planning and zoning will have as part of that village, DPW will be able to enforce if it becomes part of our standard. So just to make it official, we are just bringing in front of you. We are also going through the process of finalizing and reviewing our whole city standards. We always go through a couple of revisions every couple of years. So we're cleaning up our drawings, and then I'm hoping that maybe the latest by April, if we cannot make it by March, we're gonna bring the whole standards again in front of you so we can adopt the latest revision. We're trying to go through everything that we had that was old that we're not using anymore. We are updating some details, and also to make it easier to future developments, we are creating separate pages for each historic or village area that we have in town. And that's why I want to bring up for approval the one that would apply for whatever will be the East Avenue Village.
Are you doing the actual design, or is that coming out of Steve Kleppen's group with the outside architects?
The East Avenue TOD already had the design guidelines approved under that study. So that one was already in. What we did is based on the pictures that were approved, that was a long process, we are making those pictures that was accepted by everyone into our details. So
you're
we have to make
memorializing it into your plans. That makes
exactly.
sense, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Ms. Smith?
And that was going to be my question for Steve. I mean, these are really beautiful technical drawings, but I'm not really getting, the picture of what they would be. And so if I were to go back into those plans that we approved, I would get a visual of what this would look like.
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, yeah. So if I go back into all those pretty pictures that we approved, would I have a vision of what this would look like?
Sure. So as Anthony mentioned at the beginning, one of the appendices to the TOD plan was the design guidelines, and the design guidelines encompassed everything from architectural detail to signage to crosswalks to sidewalks and roadway standards. So Vanessa is much more diligent and then on it than I am at the moment. So she's moved ahead with the streetscape elements, and part of that is due to where they are with DOT on the East Avenue improvements overall. But that is one of the components that was approved as part of the plan.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
I have a
Sorry, Ms. Young.
question, and maybe this isn't the time. Where would any green infrastructure guidelines or standards be presented that would be well past this stage of rendering?
So,
Well,
in this process?
I can let Vanessa or Anthony speak to the anything within the right of way or on that regard. So I'm not sure if you're referring back to presentations that I gave at Planning Committee
where we talked about the need for more, and in council as well, I should say, the need for mandating and requiring more green infrastructure and more, sustainability measures into the requirements for any of the programs and any of the projects going forward. So I have a consultant that's reviewing some of that language now, and he should be done probably in about a week or two. And then I'm going to start working on the actual zoning text, just revising what was drafted. And that's one of the things I'll come back to planning committee and review that before that advances too far with the zoning commission.
And so the rendering or the drawings would complement that now, or would they look different?
No, Darlene, on this one in particularly, we're not addressing any green infrastructure because that is not anywhere on that part. That what we're just kind of transforming what was pictures into drawings that can be built.
That's what okay.
Yeah, so, but that, because, and then in the future, if anything else ended up being included in that, we can also revise our drawings and include that as part of the standard for a certain area. Also, DPW, under our drainage manual, we emphasize the use of some green infrastructure as one way of improve the water control, water quality control under our drainage manual. So we have already something established there, because if you're gonna do all the time that you come for DPW for approval of a plan, one of the main things that we look at is drainage. And now you're not, by the latest revision, you're not allowed to let any runoff for a 25-year storm to our system. And also you have to keep all that water within the parcel. And one way also to improve that number is to add some green infrastructure in place. So with that, we are trying to make that happening more in our projects. By the way, even like the past couple of weeks, we got 2 projects that they are just like small projects, but they were kind of trying to use of some green infrastructure to try to meet our requirements. So kind of it is already there, but it's not really part of the East Avenue. Now, if planning and zoning comes up with that will start being kind of some kind of mandatory, then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to revise our city standards, we're going to implement, and then we're going to bring it forward for final approval.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Now, the only thing left is discussion items. And as always, we have the sediment removal contract update, the Dreamy Hollow drainage system, and the monthly solid waste. I'm going to ask the committee if anybody wants to go through these tonight. If not, we could get a full update in March, only because I know Anthony and his crew have been working really long hours and really hard. And I could actually use a little downtime right now and get a little dinner. If everybody's okay with skipping that last part.
Definitely.
Okay. All right.
Go get some rest, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The whole crew, the whole public works, put a lot of hours in these past couple of days, and they were actually at the command center. They were monitoring what's going on the road. I rode with them once, and it's tasking. It gets really rough driving around in that snow and trying to stay focused and pay attention to what's going on. So compliments to you guys. Everybody take the rest of the night off, relax, get some rest. And thank you very much. Anything else before we close out?
No, just thanks again to Anthony's team for doing a great job.
Yeah, great job. Absolutely fantastic work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the compliments. I mean, I get them via email and text and even through service requests, and they are very humbling, and it makes a long 48 hours all worth it. Again, Chris Torrey, Nick Roberts, Ralph Kolb, all fantastic. Pushed through the foreman, who are really the boots on the ground too, and they did a fantastic job. And I said it earlier today, but on the EOC call, but I used to think White Plains was the pioneers of snow removal, and they're very good, but Norwalk definitely has them beat and second to none. So much like our paving program, that it's pretty robust and well thought out. The plowing is fantastic. And again, that's a testament to everybody here, because ultimately you approve the funding for our fleet replacement. And I mean, this is one of the few fleets I've seen where there's brand new trucks that are well taken care of. I mean, on Friday, everything was done. Chains were on the tires, trucks were preloaded, but the equipment's new. We have the resources. And I got to say that there's never a shortage of equipment. And when it comes to operations, the council has been very good at approving vac trucks, garbage trucks, dump trucks, loaders, whatever we needed. And that's important, because it makes everything a whole lot easier. We had very small number of the vehicles break down. I mean, you always have issues during a storm, but we have so many extra spares, good spares, not junk spares, good spares that a driver, it happened 6 times this storm, was able just to jump into another truck. So thank you for that. That makes all the difference.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. See everybody
Thank
again
you.
March 2nd,
Sure.
7 p.m. Have a good
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for
Take
all
care.
your
Stay
support.
safe. Bye-bye.